Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends, guys. Welcome back to r/IDontWorkHereLady, where in today's episode, a smug, entitled business owner fires a person who's not even his employee and destroys his own company. It's insane. Like, all I'm saying is grab a drink because this one post is a roller coaster full of emotions. As always, I hope you enjoy the story. Hit subscribe if you haven't, and you can send or link your post to this email right here. Okay, so firstly, this didn't happen to me. I was just with the person when they received a phone call about the issue. So in the UK, there's a system for preserving ancient and important buildings. If a building has historical importance, it's known as a listed building. And the rules of how it's developed, maintained, and improved are very strict. I also need to be vague about the work involved, otherwise it's too easy to identify the parties involved. So my friend David is skilled in a very specific area of construction. He repairs and renovates buildings using a very old construction method that hasn't been common for several centuries. All of his work is on conservation projects and the listed buildings that I mentioned. Work was required on a grade 1 listed property. The overall building work was to be done by the main contractor, AAC Limited. One part of the work is very specialized. The contractor's managers didn't know anyone who did it, so the architect gave them a list of qualified people, and the contractors chose my friend because he had the earliest availability. 5 days into the work, the owner of AAC Limited, the main contract company, arrives on site, and he was throwing his weight around. He was being a noisy gobshite, David's words. David was doing his job and ignored him, and the owner told one of his carpenters to get him a coffee. The carpenter disappeared, and the owner continued wandering and talking out loud about delays costing him a fortune. 15 minutes after the carpenter disappeared, the owner asked my friend a question. So the owner comes up to David and says, "Where's that effing chippy with my coffee?" A chippy being a carpenter. David tells him, I don't know. The owner tells David, "Well, go and find out. If I don't have my coffee soon, I'm gonna lose it." That's when David says, I actually don't work for you. I'm only here for this job," pointing to the walls. And he tells the owner, "I don't work for AAC Limited." The owner says, "I don't give a damn if you're an employee or a subcontractor. You work for me. Now go and find my effing coffee." David responds, "Firstly, I don't appreciate being talked to like that, and secondly, my contract's with you to do these walls, nothing more. I'm definitely not someone who goes and fetches coffee." The owner replies, "Oh, you don't like being talked to like that, do you? Which subcontractor do you work for?" David tells him, "None, I'm self-employed, it's just me." The owner says, "Ha! So you're a day laborer, and you've got the nerve to talk to me like that? Do you know who I am? Do you know who you're talking to?" David tells him, "Yep." And that's when the owner loses it and says, "Well, you're effing fired. Get off the effing site right now." And David tells him, "Okay, put it in writing." The owner starts screaming at him to F off and to just get off the effing site. And that's when David pulls out his phone and starts recording. David tells him, "Okay, I'll go. I just want proof that you told me to go, so can you please say it?" And that's when the owner grabs David's hand holding the phone and screams into the phone, "Get off the site, you effing idiot. You're fired. If you're still here in 10 effing minutes, I'll have you effing thrown out. Now get out of my face." At that, David tells him, "Cool, no problem." He then picks up his kids and walks away. And as he was leaving the contractor site, a manager passed him, ironically with a coffee for the owner. And with a smile, he says, "You're leaving early, Dave?" David tells him, "Nope, the owner just fired me. Our contract has ended. I'm sorry, mate." The site manager says, No. Let me sort this out. Wait, please. Please wait." David leaves anyway, and the site manager was losing his mind because he knew something that the owner did not. Only 7 people in the UK are qualified to do the work. They all have a waiting list, and David was the only one available. By the time David was home, he had 12 missed calls, and that was Thursday. 2 working days missed so far. He said he'll go back, but only if he gets paid for the extra days and has a genuine apology in person from the owner. I met my friend when he was getting a call from the site manager saying that the boss does apologize, but he's out of the country, so he can't apologize face to face. David also told me that he phoned the other specialists to warn them, but they'd all been phoned on Friday, begging them to do the job, and nobody took the work. They're all booked solid. David also phoned the architect to warn him because in situations like this, some unscrupulous contractors do try to fudge the job and fake the work out of desperation. David's gonna stick to his guns. He wants pay for all the missed days, plus a face-to-face apology, and he's sure he'll get it. I've said that I'll pay anything to watch the face-to-face apology. Guys, what a mistake on the owner's part, right? Like, this is what happens when he goes on a power trip and fires someone refusing to get him a coffee. So hope he does come back with a ton of juicy updates, guys, and it gets worse and worse and worse for the owner. And here they are. Update number 1. So the site manager phones to say that he was told by the owner to threaten legal action if David doesn't finish the job. The site manager was very embarrassed and apologetic. David reminded him that he didn't leave and he has audio proof that he was fired by the owner. The site manager phoned again to say that he'll apologize face to face on Friday, and can David start tomorrow? David said no. Following the threat of legal action, the conditions are now different. 1. David wants a face-to-face apology before work restarts. Number 2. Added pay for wasted days. Number 3. Payment of full contract value upfront before work starts. And number 4. All must happen by Thursday, as that's the last day he can start and still expect to finish before his next booking. If he works the weekends, he has just enough time. I asked him why he's not charging a huge extra amount for the guy being such a jerk, and he said it doesn't look good if you take advantage of companies when they're under time pressure, using the phrase, "not the done thing." It seems that one of my friends is actually an 18th century gentleman. Update number 2. So unfortunately it seems that there's not going to be an apology. So David discovered that the site manager was blamed for not making the owner aware of the situation beforehand. The site manager was fired on the spot. That's when David contacted the operations director for AAC Limited, the owner's number 2, and informed them that an apology is no longer required as he will not be returning to the job. The operations director apologized for everything and offered to renegotiate the money very generously. David told him that he had only considered going back to the job as a personal favor to the original site manager. Since he's not there, he feels no obligation to return. The operations director said that he'll get back to David, but didn't say why. I asked why David didn't say, "give him his job back or I won't come back," and David said the owner's too petty and weak to be told what to do by a craftsman. It'll have to be the company's idea for the site manager to come back. If I tell them to bring him back, it won't happen. David says the site manager is great at his job, but he's only 4 years from retirement, so it's not easy to find a job at 61. Update number 3. So we just got back from the pub. David got a call while we were out from the sacked site manager. David had updated the architect on the situation this afternoon. The architect contacted the sacked site manager to tell him that a company's hiring and needs a site manager. The site manager phoned David just before 9 p.m. I had to sit through the phone call only hearing one side. Then David filled me in. So the site manager called to thank him and to find out his favorite drink so he could send him a bottle. He hasn't gotten the new job yet, but apparently he's seeing them on Friday. The architect's recommendation does carry some weight, so he's optimistic. Update number 4. So the operations director for AAC Limited phoned David to tell him that they will take the site manager back and generously renegotiate the money. David says they've missed the boat, and there's no way he can finish the job on his own before he starts his next job. Also, that there's an absolute minimum of 11 days work left if everything goes without a hitch. David's next job starts the 4th of November, only 10 days left if he works both weekends, which is too late. I wish I could be a fly on the wall when the owner's told. Update number 5. So there's some bad news. The fired site manager didn't get the other job. He met the new company, but they're not taking him on. The reasons aren't clear. David's meeting him on Sunday to discuss it though. I can tell that David feels like crap about it even though it's not his fault. The site manager says that he's going to take action for unfair dismissal. I thought this was going to be a win-win-win situation, but I suppose life isn't like that. Update number 6. News about the sacked site manager. So the situation isn't as bad as we first thought. I think we misunderstood what happened on Friday. So David talked to him yesterday, and the company he saw on Friday aren't employing him the normal way. That part was correct. They offered him a fixed-term contract for 18 months. Now, it's not perfect, but on the bright side, it's slightly better paid than AAC. It's only 18 months, but that's better than nothing. There's also the chance that the new company might extend the contract if another project comes in. Update number 7. So David's heard that they're getting a Bulgarian to come do the job, and David was grinning when he told me. He thinks he knows exactly what's going to happen. So there's a similar but different technique that's used on some of the 19th century buildings in Sofia, and David thinks the guy will use that technique. It does look similar, but two very important materials are different. So David's decided to wait. He plans to let the Bulgarian finish the job and to get paid. And then David's gonna suggest to the planning department and the client that they check the two components. And unless the Bulgarian knows the 17th century English method, he would have used the wrong materials and they would have to rip it out and start over again. They're incredibly strict with this type of work. And I shouldn't want this so much, but I really hope this happens. I'm a petty man. Many are also asking when David will know if the Bulgarian has done the job right. David might know fairly soon, since there's very few suppliers of one of the materials. If the Bulgarian contacts them, David will be told. And in David's words, it's a tiny, incestuous part of the industry, and they like to gossip like old women. Correction, we all gossip like old women. If the guy doesn't go there, David's leaving it alone until he's told that the work is finished and the Bulgarian is paid. He doesn't want to put the guy's money at risk, and in David's words, I don't want the Bulgarian to drag his ass over here and go home empty-handed just because I can't wait to ruin the owner. The man's got a living to earn. I'll wait. It should take the Bulgarian about 3 weeks to finish the job, unless he works weekends. And David knows plenty of people on site and a few at AAC head office, so he'll know when the job's finished. So I've got to sit on my hands for 3 to 4 weeks and pretend that I'm not an excited 7-year-old girl peeing her pants about Christmas coming. I'll update again pretty soon. Update number 8. There's a lot of news. So the Bulgarian finished the job and he went home 2 weeks ago. According to the people who met Stefan, the Bulgarian, he was a good guy and a very hard worker. He did 12-hour days and weekends, so he could cut the cost of staying in the UK. And based on what he learned about Stefan, David is happy that he waited until Stefan got paid before he reported the work. David was already fairly sure that Stefan wasn't doing the job correctly. He had checked the 3 firms who are the only UK suppliers of the most obscure material involved on the job, and none said that they had an order for the site. Now, of course, it was possible that Stefan imported it, but nobody on site had seen an overseas material order. So as planned, David contacted the local authority planning department, the client, the architect, and an organization called Historic England. He explained his concerns and the easiest, least intrusive way of testing, and then he waited for them to look into it. Now, it only took a couple of days, but I can honestly say that I've never been so anxious or felt so invested in something that's none of my effing business. The first report that came from the architect was the wrong method used. Wrong method using the wrong materials. Stefan used a 19th century Bulgarian technique, not the 17th century English technique that was demanded. The architect was enormously pissed off, and David said he's never heard the architect use bad language before, but this phone call was blue. Apparently the owners called that ignorant effing cockwomble by the architect. David asked me what the heck a cockwomble is, and I had no idea. Suggestions are welcome. The architect also said that he was going to contact the local authority because he doesn't want them to think that this has anything to do with him. So most of the rest came to David's second or third hand. He knows some of the staff from AAC, and I asked if it was difficult to get them to tell him anything. He said he can't pick up the phone fast enough. So the local authority planning officers visited the site and they inspected the work. They then told the contractor that the work was entirely wrong and must be cleared and done properly. And this is when it gets interesting. The inspectors had a look around the site and they find a big issue. Now, I can't be specific about this because it would be too easy to identify the building involved. All I can say is the contractor destroyed a part of the building, which is a huge no-no on a historical building. There was an internal feature that didn't look particularly important, but it's a part of the roof structure. They had it removed and they put in a much better modern support, but they're not allowed to. Neither the project manager, the new site manager, or the staff knew the importance. And guess who ordered it to be replaced and done the cheap, quick way instead of repaired using the slow, expensive option? Of course, it was the owner. Now, this is where it gets good. So, it's a criminal offense to destroy anything on this type of property. And just to remind you all again, this is an ancient historical building that has historical importance, so this is a jail time type of crime. Even if they don't go to jail, it's a massive fine. So now everyone in the company is pointing fingers at each other and claiming no responsibility. And of course, the owners claim that he didn't give the order to take out the roof structure. But the project manager has email evidence that he did. On Tuesday the 19th, the client orders all the contractor staff off the site. They're having everything examined. It's almost certain that they're firing the contractor and filing a lawsuit. They've also issued instructions for bids from new contractors. They'll also sue the contractor for the cost of repairing and replacing everything that they've done wrong. The architect estimates that this was about £800,000 in damages, which is about $950,000 US. The local authority planning department wrote to the contractor outlining what they've done wrong and advising them of their plans to inspect and the possibility of prosecution. According to staff, the owner disappeared the day the letters arrived. David had 3 different people from AAC phone him when the news of the letters circulated around the staff. So now we're waiting on a few things. Number 1, the client's inspection. If that confirms that AAC's damaged the site, then the client has the right to fire the contractor. AAC doesn't get paid and they have a massive repair bill. Number 2, the local authority inspection by the conservation experts. If they've destroyed features in the property, the local authority will prosecute AAC as a company and the person who ordered it. David's very unhappy because the internal structure has been destroyed and can never be replaced. In his own words, that wood has been sitting there doing its job for 400 years, until that idiot owner came into the picture. Now that it's gone, that's it. Never again. He seems genuinely sad, and I'm betting that the owner's wishing that he got his own coffee last month. Update number 9. So, the letter to AAC did not threaten to prosecute. It only made them aware of the planning department's intention to send a specialist to inspect the building. Apparently, prosecution, if it happens, takes forever, and the owner might actually be prosecuted, but if that happens, it's more likely to be a while. Also, a lot of people have asked what happened to the original site manager. Well, me, David, the site manager, and 2 others met in a pub, and he definitely has the new job. He starts on the 9th of February. He also brought David the whiskey he promised, and David said he shouldn't, but the site manager said a good man keeps his word, even to a shower of soft, shandy-sipping southerners like you lot. Besides, I'm not risking breaking this lucky streak. Even the whiskey was half price. I'm waffling now because I'm full of whiskey and it's 1 a.m, so it's past my bedtime. Bye for now. Update number 10. So I think there might be some karmic justice on its way. The owner's been interviewed under caution, and it doesn't mean that they're definitely taking legal action against him, but it means they're preparing for the possibility. They also did the same with the project manager, and they're gonna do it with the fired site manager next week. The site manager's confident that he has nothing to worry about. The decision to remove the roof support sections was made after he was fired. He also said he was confident that if he was there at the time of legal altercation, the idiot owner would have tried to pass responsibility onto him. Or, as the site manager put it in his words, that cowardly, slope-shouldered turd would have shat all over me to save his own skin. Luckily, the project manager has proof in the form of an email that the owner told him to do the work. The owner also tried to persuade and bribe him to not pass the email to people investigating. When that didn't work, he tried to threaten him, and that backfired because not only did the project manager ignore the threats, but he outright told the investigators that the owner told him to lose the email. I have a lawyer friend who tells me that interfering with the witness and destruction of evidence are offenses in themselves. The owner won't stop digging himself a deeper hole. And I'm gonna be so disappointed if he gets away without legal consequences. But he's definitely suffering though. That's the big news of the week. Last update. So the owner has been fired. David announced it yesterday, after he was told by no less than 4 different employees of AAC. He said they couldn't wait to tell him. The conversation basically went like this. So I asked, how the heck is that possible? Like, how does the owner get fired? Did he just walk up to a mirror and say, "You're fired"? David says no. So you know how he inherited the business from dad and uncle? I replied, yep. David then says, well, I don't think you know that his brother and cousin own a slice each. Well, their combined share is over 50%, so they fired him. And according to Louise, the accounts manager, they were pissing their pants and in panic mode. They were happy to leave the owner in charge as long as the money rolled in, but now their golden goose looks very sick. They're terrified that losing the contract and the penalties and fines will finish the business. So they're appealing to the client and the property owner to take AAC back to finish the contract. Part of that involves convincing the building owner that the idiot will never have anything to do with the company ever again. Obviously, they're throwing the owner under the bus. Louise said that there was screaming and threats of violence from the owner when they fired him, and he had to be escorted off the premises by police. He's also been phoning employees, asking questions, and he does seem surprised when people don't want to help him. According to Louise, he actually thinks the employees like him and they want to be loyal to him. She says the man is in cloud cuckoo land. The client and building owner has done their inspection. They found 2 areas to be unacceptable as expected, and they're very unhappy. When listed buildings are damaged, the local authority normally assumes it's the owner taking shortcuts. But in this case, the owner's a crusty old institution dedicated to preserving important buildings. They're not used to being accused of anything shady, so they didn't like having to prove that they had nothing to do with the damage to the building. David said it looks like they've written off AAC because they've issued a type of request for tenders to several other contractors who specialize in conservation. So in simple English, they've asked a few companies to quote a price for the job. So here I was, hoping the story would build up to a crescendo, with the owner suffering something horrible, but it just sort of fizzled out with a whimper, while we get to wait to see what kind of legal action is going to be taken. So yeah guys, I can't see it going very well for AAC. Like at the very minimum, they're going to have to pay for the cost to undo the work and the damages to the building. And to think that all this started because the owner was such an entitled man with the I'm better than everyone, I own everyone attitude. Like I'm pretty sure he regrets firing OP pretty hard. And that, my friends, brings us to another end of our /IDontWorkHereLady. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's stories. Hit the like button if you did, and subscribe if you're not subscribed so you don't miss these crazy stories. And if you missed the last episode on the channel, it's an r/entitled people, where a psycho Karen gets rid of OP's cat because OP refused to babysit for her. It's such a wild story, so go check it out if you haven't. And myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.